She was the ice queen of fashion, haunting, hypnotic, and untouchable. Then one day, she disappeared. No headlines, no scandal. Just a terrifying silence that stretched for years. But what if that silence was not a mystery but a warning? What if behind the perfect cheekbones and unblinking stare was a story so brutal, so suffocating, that the industry chose not to see it?
I think you need to be nice with everybody and people gonna be nice to you. I think it's really important.
This is not the tale of a model who fell. It is the unraveling of a woman who was erased by the very world that crowned her. And what finally pulled her back into the light was not a comeback. It was a confession. Stay with us because once you know what really happened to Snejana Onopka, you will never look at a fashion show the same way again.
Hi, my name is Snejana. I'm from Ukraine. I'm 19 years old and I'm from Why Not? It's my agency. On my language? Здравствуйте, Fashion TV.
The first time Snejana Onopka turned a broken sidewalk into a runway, no one noticed. No cameras, no applause, just a cold street in Severodonetsk and a teenage girl walking like her life depended on it. In a town where dreams were buried under concrete and factory smoke, Snejana didn't fantasize. She calculated. Modeling was not a fantasy. It was her escape plan. She did not grow up surrounded by beauty. Severodonetsk was gray and quiet, a chemical town with no fashion scene, no bright lights, just factory smoke and frozen sidewalks. In post-Soviet Ukraine, the idea of becoming a model was not just unlikely, it was absurd. Her family wasn't wealthy. In fact, like most families in the area, they struggled. The electricity would cut off midwinter. Warm baths were a luxury. But even in that environment, Snejana watched, waited, and imagined. She cut out pages from old-fashioned magazines, sometimes torn, sometimes water-stained, and taped them to the wall by her bed, like they were windows to another life. But she did not talk much about it. She was the tall, pale girl who didn't smile often. Too thin for comfort, too quiet to belong. Her classmates did not know what to make of her. Teachers thought she was fragile. Other kids called her ghost girl behind her back, an odd mix of invisible and unforgettable. But there was one thing she had that no one could touch: intent. She didn't just dream of modeling, she studied it. Not the clothes or the glamour, but the faces. She obsessed over emotion, symmetry, and stillness. Even as a child, she was not copying models. She was becoming one. At 15, she did something very few girls from Severodonetsk would dare. She left, moved to Kiev completely alone. No job lined up, no real plan. Just one suitcase, a second-hand coat, and a belief she couldn't explain. She found work in a cafe, cleaning tables in the back, staying in shared rooms, and skipping meals to save cash. It was not noble, it was necessary. Every day was a quiet battle between reality and the life she might have. And then it happened. One evening, a foreign modeling scout came into the cafe. He didn't notice the soup or the coffee. He noticed her. Snejana was clearing tables in silence, not trying to stand out. But to him, she looked like a photograph waiting to be taken. He asked her flatly, "Have you ever modeled before?" She didn't giggle. She didn't gush. She just nodded once and everything changed. A week later, she was standing in front of a camera for the first time. The light hit her face and it was like she changed species. Her eyes went blank intentionally. Her posture became sharp and angular. Even the photographers looked confused. "She doesn't pose," one of them said. "She channels." There was no need for coaching. She already knew how to disappear into the lens. But what looked like destiny on film was chaos behind the scenes. She was still broke, still skipping meals. The agencies wanted her thinner, always thinner. She wasn't bubbly enough. She was told she looked too severe, too cold, not relatable. Rejections piled up. Castings went nowhere. She started to wonder if this whole thing was a mistake. And yet she never went back.
It's fine, it's money, it's good, but it's not my dream.
So, what is her dream?
I don't thinking about this, but I don't know.
When asked about her dream, Snejana said, "I don't know." That uncertainty was not from a lack of ambition, but from the intense pressure she faced, harsh demands to change, and constant self-doubt. Though she could not name her dream yet, she never gave up. She was still searching, growing stronger with every challenge. This was not some Cinderella story. There was no magic moment, no sudden rise. It was loneliness, hunger, rejection, and yet, underneath all of it, control. Every moment she didn't quit, she got sharper, colder, better. She hadn't made it yet, but she had already survived what many couldn't. Not just poverty or pressure, but invisibility. That was the first battle Snejana Onopka won. And as the cameras would soon discover, she was just getting started.
I have a green skirt, long, it's really cool. And I love the belts and bags.
Oh yeah, I got woman, real now.
One season, she was on every cover. The next, she was a ghost. No scandal, no public statement, no swan song, just silence. For years, Snejana Onopka had dominated fashion without ever raising her voice. She didn't have to. Her stare, glassy, detached, surgical, spoke louder than any interview ever could. But when that stare disappeared from the runways, people whispered. Was she finished? Was she sick? Was it all too much? Rewind to the beginning of her ascent, and it felt like fashion had discovered a glitch in the system. The year was 2005. Girls were still smiling, swinging hips, playing charming. Then came her. A face that did not ask for attention. It demanded it. Miuccia Prada did not just cast her, she built a whole mood around her. Suddenly, silence became a weapon. Stillness became a style. And Snejana became fashion's cold front. Stephen Meisel put her in Vogue Italia and sealed it. The new order had arrived. Not soft, not girl next door icy, untouchable. She did not blink for the camera, she disappeared into it. The biggest names fought for her presence. Gucci, Calvin Klein, and YSL. She was not walking shows, she was hypnotizing them. And at the center of it all, a girl who said almost nothing, did not smile, did not perform. It just appeared flawless, then vanished. Again and again. But perfection has a price. Whispers followed her wherever she went, that she was difficult, that she did not engage, that she was too thin, too blank, too cold. But the industry that built her demanded that coldness. She was never asked to be happy. She was asked to be perfect. And in that silence, something darker grew. She never missed a shoot, never cracked on camera. But behind the walls of studios and backstage chaos, she was crumbling. The pressure to stay waif thin, to not speak out, to keep becoming whatever the designer needed, that pressure didn't fade. It intensified. Then, one season, she just stopped showing up. No drama, no scandal, no long goodbye, just a slow, chilling fade. By 2009, something had shifted. Snejana Onopka, once the unstoppable face of Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, and Vogue Italia, was slipping off the radar. There wasn't a single headline to market, just fewer appearances. No more show openings, fewer editorials. A model who used to close major fashion weeks was suddenly not invited. Insiders noticed. Her name disappeared from casting boards during Paris Fashion Week. No one said it aloud, but people started wondering, where's Snejana? Was she tired? Sick? Pushed out? She was only in her early 20s, prime years in modeling, but the phone had stopped ringing. There was no formal announcement, just absence. For an industry that devours attention, silence is suspicious. And this silence stretched on. By 2010, she was barely visible. A few photos on fan blogs, maybe a local shoot here and there, but the major campaigns? Gone. The runway? Gone. Editors had moved on to the next wave. Carly Kloss, Joan Smalls, Arizona Muse. Snejana's era of icy, withdrawn, untouchably chic was over. The world no longer wanted statues. It wanted smiles. Then a brief flicker. 2012. A Tom Ford beauty campaign. She looked perfect. Just as sharp. Just as haunting. Her cheekbones still sliced the air like glass. But something felt different. The power was not behind the eyes anymore. It was behind the memory of them. That shoot was meant to be a comeback. It was not. Fashion did not reject her. It just did not pause for her. Her return made ripples, not waves. A younger generation barely recognized the name. Editors called it a nice surprise. But there were no bookings that followed. The spotlight moved before she could step back into it. From 2012 to 2021, her presence was reduced to whispers. She appeared in a few Eastern European editorials, local shoots, minor campaigns, but no Met galas, no September issues, no headlines. For a model who once defined cool, she was now gone. Her runway days seemed over until 2017. London Fashion Week, Natasha Zinko's show, and there she was opening, walking like nothing had changed. The crowd gasped. Stylists pointed. Is that Snejana? She did not just walk, she haunted that runway. Same gaze, same poise. But the applause that followed was not for the comeback. It was for the memory. That single walk felt like a tribute, not a restart. Because the truth was, after nearly a decade away, fashion had reshaped itself. It no longer had room for the kind of beauty Snejana embodied, too still, too unreadable, too controlled. She was not gone because she lost her look. She was gone because the world wanted noise. Snejana gave it silence. And in that silence, the emotional cost became clear. This was not just a career decline, it was also an identity collapse. Imagine being told for years that your face is your power, your walk, your ticket, your silence, your currency. Then, one day, none of it is enough. And no one tells you why.
Ну, как бы я ничего не планирую в жизни, я живу одним днем. Пока работается, работаю.
Що мама воліє, аби ви робили далі після закінчення модельної кар'єри?
Но она хочет, чтобы я пошла учиться, конечно. И я планирую пойти учиться.
No one prepares a model for what happens when the camera stops clicking. For Snejana, fashion gave everything status, wealth, and worship. And then, without warning, it took it all back. That kind of rejection is not loud. It's cold. It's quiet. It isolates you in plain sight. Friends fade, calls stop. You stop seeing yourself in magazines and start questioning if you ever really belonged in them. By 2021, Snejana Onopka had become a cult figure. Revered, but distant. Iconic, but absent. Her legacy remained, but her presence did not. There were no memoirs, no front rows, no masterclasses. Just a name that now lived in hashtags and fan edits. A face that once told the story of fashion's sharpest edge is now frozen in time. And maybe that is the cruelest twist of all. She did not fall from grace. She vanished from relevance. And for someone who once ruled the runways without saying a word, the silence she was left in was unbearable. She did not come back on a magazine cover. She did not walk a runway in Milan or Paris. There was no big campaign or headline comeback, just a quiet post, one photo, a short caption, and in that silence, a crack began to show. It was 2020. Nearly 10 years had passed since the world last saw Snejana Onopka, the once iconic face of Dior, Valentino, and Vogue. She had vanished without a trace at the peak of her career. Rumors flew. People whispered about burnout, attitude, and even laziness. But no one really knew. The truth was darker. Much darker. That year, she broke her silence not through a stylist or publicist, but directly through her social media. What she revealed was shocking. Her years away weren't spent resting or hiding. They were spent surviving. The man she had married, Ukrainian businessman Mykola Shchur, had not been a loving husband behind the scenes. He had been abusive, not just physically, but emotionally. She described years of control, fear, and manipulation. He isolated her and wore her down piece by piece. Her once bright, commanding presence was slowly replaced with quiet obedience. The glamorous photos from their early years masked the growing horror behind closed doors. This was not a model comeback. It was a survival story. But even then, her truth did not come out all at once. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was slow, fragile, like a voice just learning how to speak again. In 2021, she appeared in a haunting art project titled Somnia Disaster, released for the anniversary of the Chernobyl catastrophe. It wasn't fashion. It was a visual poem of pain. In it, Snejana appeared like a ghost, pale, weightless, eyes hollow. There were no designer labels, no lighting tricks, just her, standing in the ruins of something invisible yet massive. Like Chernobyl, her trauma had been quiet, hidden, toxic, and still leaking beneath the surface. That project wasn't just art, it was therapy. Her way of saying, this is what trauma looks like when no one's looking. After her 2020 post, Snejana divorced Shur. It should have been a victory, freedom. But trauma doesn't vanish with a signature. Even after the papers were signed, the pain stayed. She faced long nights of insomnia, panic attacks, doubt. Questions like, was it my fault? Did I wait too long to leave? Will anyone believe me? She had walked countless catwalks, but now she was navigating something far more terrifying: healing, alone, in silence. No fans were cheering. No editors praised her strength. Just slow, aching days of putting herself back together. Some days, even brushing her hair felt like too much. And yet, through all of it, there was one part of her life she guarded fiercely: her children. Very few people even knew she had them. She never posted their faces, never spoke their names in interviews, not once. While the internet dissected her past and speculated about her pain, she built a wall around their world and never let the spotlight through. Every choice she made, every step forward, and every battle she fought was not just for herself. It was for them, their peace, their normalcy. She had lived her entire young life being watched. She swore they would not. She fought tooth and nail to keep them out of reach, out of gossip, out of the press, out of harm. In courtrooms and behind closed doors, she did everything she could to make sure their lives would never become someone else's story, because she knew the price of exposure. She had lived it, and she would never let them pay it too. But one person never left her side: Natalia, an old friend from the early modeling days. While others moved on or turned away, Natalia leaned in. Through late-night voice messages, long-distance calls, and gentle reminders of who Snejana had been before all this, before the silence, before the abuse, she became Snejana's anchor. When the world had forgotten her, Natalia remembered. She didn't try to fix her. She just stayed. In 2022, the war in Ukraine broke out. Bombs fell, streets emptied. Snejana, already bruised from years of emotional wreckage, had to run again. This time, it was physical. She left behind everything: her home, her past, her pain, and relocated to Riga, Latvia. It wasn't just a new country, it was a fresh start. A place where no one whispered her name in salons, a place where she could heal without performance, where her story didn't begin and end with her face. The fans she had once dazzled with high cheekbones and piercing eyes now saw her differently. They didn't admire her for fashion anymore. They admired her for the truth. In comment sections, people thanked her. Survivors told their own stories. A community began to grow, quiet but powerful. Then in 2024, something shifted again. She posted a new photo. No heavy makeup, no dramatic styling, just her soft, unfiltered, and at peace. The caption? Finally happy. 2 words. But for her, they were a scream, a victory, a sign that after all the storms, she had found a clearing. That happiness was no longer a performance. It was real. Snejana Onopka's story does not end in fashion. It ends in something deeper. She showed us that beauty doesn't protect you from pain sometimes, it hides it. She reminded the world that when a woman disappears, it's not always about career moves or drama. Sometimes it's because she's fighting for her life in the shadows. Sometimes she's protecting a quieter world that deserves better than what she got. She was not just a face. She was a warning, a mirror, a message. So now the question is no longer, where did she go? The real question is, why did we let her suffer in silence for so long just because she looked beautiful while doing it? And how many more are still suffering quietly just out of frame? She did not leave fashion. Fashion left her. Erased in silence, Snejana Onopka wasn't broken, just forgotten. But in that void, she reclaimed herself not for applause, but for survival. This was not a comeback, it was a reckoning. So the next time you see perfection on screen, ask yourself what pain is hiding behind that pose. If her story struck a nerve, don't just scroll to share it. Not for views, but for every voice still trapped in silence. And before you go, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, why do we only hear the screams once the spotlight is gone?